of the second half of the class. So those are exactly things that I'm going to be talking about in this class. So
I'll stay and listen then.
You're a paid shill at setting me up, like they used to do in the old medicine days. Hello all. Thank you for joining. I had no idea whatsoever this would be as popular as it is. I expected, like I said in my email, about 20 to 30 people. We have over 100 RSVP'd, plus folks who didn't RSVP and will just show up. I appreciate you coming. If you will please turn off your video, I would really appreciate it, because not everyone has the bandwidth to be able to handle video for this many people, as well as audio and screen sharing. Also, if you will please go to the, I think you can do it up here, to the participants, select yourself, go to more, and rename yourself to first name plus call sign. We're going to be needing that in just a little while when we get to the hands-on portion.
Hey, Jim, you ought to do that for everybody that doesn't know your call sign.
No, because then they might contact me. Can I do that for
And
you?
I guess it is on the screen. So, I mean, on your photo there, you're welcome.
Oh, nuts. Now you know who I am. Oh, well. Okay, yeah, I just did it. I thought I already had done it, and maybe I dropped off. But now I have done it. Thank you. Okay. So the Red Cross is a huge organization. I don't know how many people there are. It's in, I think, the tens of thousands, certainly multi-thousands. It is over 95% comprised of volunteers. And there's just so many different things you can participate with the Red Cross. I recommend them if you're interested in being a volunteer. And you can, you don't have to go out and roll Band-Aids. There are a variety of different things, but that's not what this is about. What this is about is how the Red Cross communicates internally, especially at a deployed shelter. The Red Cross centers around the use of forms. There's several forms, not that many actually, considering the size of the organization, because they're general purpose, and some of the forms can use different things. Status check, supplies requisition, summary, variety of different forms. Those forms are used by the Red Cross under normal circumstances, either pulling it down from a centralized server, or I have been told, because there's so many different groups, that a lot of people have it already preloaded on their PCs, and they just pick up a form. It's a HTML thing, fill it out, save it, and then use their regular mail program to mail it from their PC to the recipient. Again, the Red Cross is so huge, there is no one consistent way of handling forms. And so some of the different regions and districts can vary in procedure, but basically they all use the form, and that's how they communicate, request, supply, keep up to date. Hello, come on. Got too many windows open. I'm gonna close that. Oh dear, I closed it. Okay, so fine. Sorry, I closed a window that I wanted. So ARC worker fills out a form on either their Red Cross supplied laptop or a personal, which is very common. They fill out that form, attach it to a regular email, send it out over the internet to the ARC recipient, who gets it in their inbox. This is not the only way they do it, but this is the most common way. How they get the form can vary. If the internet should go out, if there's no Wi-Fi, then a lot of times the workers will use their phone as a hotspot if they're cell service, and still work it the same way. But if there is no internet, no Wi-Fi, and no cell service, that's when we get brought in. By the way, yeah, we're full of 100. That is amazing. I just blown away. So we have 100 people, no one else can join, and I apologize. I'm keeping the chat window open. You all probably ought to also, because there's some good questions and some good answers also. And I will try to respond to any questions I see over there. If you have a question, please unmute yourself and ask it, because chances are if you're asking it, someone else is going to want to answer it or know the question too. So this scenario is when there's no Wi-Fi or internet and no cell service. We get asked to be brought into the middle. How we work in the middle will vary depending on how the local Red Cross operates. FLMSG, which is what we're here to talk about, is a program created by the same people that did FLDG. It's open source, it's good. This has been adopted by several regions, not all, several regions and districts of the Red Cross as a common way of creating a form, filling out a form and sending it. And the person has to have FLMSG sending it, and normally, but not required, FLMSG to receive it. If you install it and the first time you run it, it should ask if you want what mode you want to use. We're using the agency or simple mode, which gives you this sort of interface. If you made the mistake of going to expert dialog, this is what you would get only and not this. If you did that and you need to go back, go to config, go to user interface, make sure this is unchecked, close, and then close the program. And the next time you start it, it should come back in this way. This is so simple. There's 3 things you can do. Make a new message, view a received message, or edit a received message, or one that you haven't sent yet. You can making changes. When you install FLMSG using the way that I shared from SourceForge, it installs on your hard drive, but then looks for templates in your Windows username, then under its own structure of NEBMS files and custom. So these are where all the templates that you would download from SourceForge would get placed. When you send a message, or create a message, I should say, it goes in the same thing, but it goes into its username, NEBMS files, ICS messages. So these are the messages that are created and viewed. These are nice little shortcuts to get to those directories. Questions so far? FLMSG from SourceForge wanted you to subscribe? I have never seen that. So I don't know. Just to download a file, and that I gave you the link of the file. I'll have to look into that. No, SourceForge, if you just clicked on that link, should take you to the file directly for downloading. I apologize if it's a credit card info. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that or not. If it does, I'll try to share it with you in another way. So anyway, here we are back to this. In the case of using FLMSG, and again, this started out to be a Georgia training. Georgia ARC hasn't really standardized, or I don't know if they have or haven't. Not that I can tell they've standardized. So they are looking into the use of FLMSG because they've heard such good things from California. Did it with those big wildfires and earthquakes and such, as well as several of the Midwest, where it's not too unusual for communications to go out when there's tornadoes. So Georgia is evaluating it, and so we're, as Georgia Aries and Hams, going to be using it for the upcoming drill on the 30th. I'll show you in just a minute other ways if you don't use FLMSG, but that's what this is about. So I create a new message. Coming from the templates folder, I get a list of forms I could create. Can everyone get this far with FLMSG? If not, speak up. Excellent. So
No,
this is something, go ahead.
I'm actually not able to. I don't know if you could just walk through it again quick.
Okay, so I use SourceForge. I downloaded the setup. I ran it. It installed on my directory, on my PC. Messages then have to be, not messages. The next step in my instructions was from SourceForge, grab all the Red Cross forms and stick it in the username, nebs files, custom nebums files, custom directory. That was all part of the setup. When you first run, FLMSG will give you a shortcut. When you first run it, it will ask you to select an interface. I highly recommend using the simple or agency interface, which is what gives you this box. Then when I create a new message, it should give you the list of the forms you can use. And again, these are the ones that you downloaded from SourceForge and put in the templates folder, where I can pick one to fill out. Did that answer your question or get you up to speed?
Yeah, I think I just have all those messages in the wrong folder, so I'm going to copy them and dump them in where they belong.
Okay, so it should go in the templates folder. So you can just open this up and drag them all into right here.
Okay.
Okay. So when I click on one, this is the very common or requisition. I select it, and a browser opens, presenting me with that form. This is a spitting image of the form that they use if they, printed it out themselves or if they use their own system. Has all the different things you would fill in, and then when they were done, they would submit form. Now I keep saying they, because in this scenario, they're creating the form, they're reading the form, and we are just moving it. For drills and other things, we create our own messages so that we can send them. So you should be able to be familiar with the use of FLMSG. You also may be helping out somebody at the shelter use FLMSG, because while some training has taken place, not everyone gets it. So you may have to show them. This is also why we have the USB. Ideally, if the region and district is using FLMSG, it's included in the disaster packs. It's also, they should have their own laptops and or eventually get ARC laptops. Sometimes the laptops show up a little bit later when the IT folks do. But they should be all self-sufficient, and they should be sending and receiving as long as there's internet. But in some cases, where we get involved, we have found that maybe the laptop hasn't made it yet, or maybe they can't find the FLMSG USB that Red Cross supplies. So that's why it's always handy to have our own copy of the USB stick ready to loan them or let them use if they need to until theirs shows up. Also, we tend to bring a spare junk laptop, if you've got one, that you could plug this USB stick into and say, here, use this as if it were your own until it shows up. So the USB stick is not required, but it's handy when you get to a deployment just in case. And there is a different way to set that up, as I showed in my instructions on how to create it. The difference is it's exactly the same program, but it doesn't use the Windows username as the root directory. It uses the USB stick as the root directory. That's the only difference, but it's a big one. Any questions so far? Okay, so I have this installed on my PC. This is what you would probably be doing as the radio operator.
Hey, Jim.
Yep.
How do we make sure we get the latest forms? Because I think it seems like there's different versions of some of these forms.
I've asked that very same question. SourceForge is the official, I don't have that email. It was in that link where I told you to get the forms in the first place. You can get them from there. From what I've been told, however, even if you use an older form, it should still work as long as the other end has that same form. So as we'll see in a minute, it specifies exactly which version of the form the message was created in so that it can look the same on the recipient. SourceForge is the source of it. And therefore, I would also suggest, because you don't know exactly what version the other end has, you can see the versions are built in. You might want to have a couple versions of the form, and then just either if you know you're working with a group that has old forms, pick the old form when you create it, or have the new form by default, but you can still display old forms if one is sent to you. They change slowly. They haven't changed since I've been working with this, so it's not really as big an issue as it would seem. Okay. Oh yeah, MediaFire. That is an ad place loves selling you things, so I'm sorry about that. So here we are as the radio operator. How it should work is they create a form and they hand us the USB. We'd plug it in. It will show up in this same structure as this, but it will be the USB drive here. That's where we would find them. We grab the message off that USB stick and bring it over to our messages file installed with our version of FLMSG. So far, so good. Okay. So that then puts it in our messages file. We could view it if we wanted to. And this is one that is been saved but not really filled out, but it was a saved form. Notice by default, I went back to customs. The file name is date and time, and then in case there happen to be two exactly at the same time, which I don't know how, you have a -1, -2, and what have you. We are mostly interested in the time since everything we're doing is on the same day. The Red Cross person should say, okay, the last message on there, I want you to send to Jane Doe at redcross.org. So I will use, I will get back to this later. I'm just skimming it right now. I will use a 214 form that I have, and I'll write down that message 201512L goes to Jane Doe at redcross.org. So that, I'm going to leave this open just for a minute. When I come over to Winlink, create a new message to I will then be able to attach a file right there. And I'll know by looking at my 214 form that this message should go to that person. I'm going to come back to this a little bit more. Again, I'm just skimming again. So here we are at this step. We've been given a message. It's a .k2s file. .k2s. We've created a Winlink message. We've attached the file. We've addressed it. We should also include in the body of the message, repeat who it's to, what the message is, the file name, and where it's from the North Avenue shelter. And then I can send it. How you send it will depend upon how you have been, your situation is where you're deployed. In the case of Atlanta, we could have some bad tornadoes rip up a good chunk of Atlanta, but we have so many repeaters that have power backup, that have internet connectivity, it's probably a safe bet you'll find at least one that I can connect to and have the message delivered over the internet. So they would receive it just as if they had sent it. It would be in their inbox of their mail program where they're normally used to looking at it. But it could be you're out in the Midwest, or you just happen to be in an area where it really is some devastation. Internet's down. So then I would do address it to a Winlink operator over here and use a digipeater in the middle to have it sent. That'd be a peer-to-peer, again, VHF or UHF, or I can use WinMore or other things on HF and either use a server in some other state to come back to this person or have it sent peer-to-peer to another operator at the disaster operating center. So how...
What do you do, N1DID here, what do you do if that repeater is down and has no access to the internet and or has no access to the internet? It's just going to sit there let's say, for example, you have a Winlink node, but its internet is down. You don't know that on the client side. So you go into that repeater node and it acknowledges your message and it puts it in its queue to upload, but it has no internet. And so it just sits there forever. You don't have any acknowledgments. You have no way of knowing if that message is just sitting in the queue at that Winlink node site. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
you're sending a message and you think it went to the recipient, but it never got there. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
So the only thing you should be trying to use is peer-to-peer HF, I would think.
No. I disagree. And if you'll give me a minute. Go ahead.
This is Bob AI6KU. If it goes to a CMS that doesn't have active internet, that CMS will relay by HF to another CMS that does.
And that's not always a given.
I don't think that's really
a given. You're right.
Yeah. That's not a given. Not all of them have HF capability. None of the ones here in Connecticut do.
Not the server itself. And then if this link is down, I can't get to to something that does have it. I can't relay it this way. So
isn't there a read receipt format as well?
No,
not. And even if there was, it's because this person do it. And if you can keep up with all of those, that's great. But no, I don't believe there is one.
So what really the only thing that you can really be guaranteed of making sure it got to the appropriate recipient, in my mind at least, is HF peer-to-peer, correct?
And I don't think that's also guaranteed. But again, allow me if I will. So there is usually an operator deployed at the DOC. And by definition, the DOC is not in the disaster zone. It's always in a place that is working because they have to communicate and work with their vendors and get supplies and coordination. So this is something the Red Cross has said, the DOC will always be out of the hot area, as they call it. Typically, when you first set up, this radio operator would check in with that radio operator to confirm voice in many cases, but also would try to send and receive messages. That's where you would find out that this server in the middle isn't working. And you would know right on, or early on, I should say, that path isn't the way to go. You would then try to say, okay, can I do peer-to-peer using digipeaters and get to this point? Possibly yes, possibly no. If not, then I would fall back to HF. Why you wouldn't use HF to start with? It's a bottleneck at this end. It takes much longer in comparison for HF to transmit the same message. And I can only really do one at a time at this point unless I have multiple receivers. And that if I have multiple shelters deployed, I'm a bottleneck. So you are exactly right that HF works when just about anything else doesn't. But there are some penalties that you pay for it. So the pecking order of trying, usually, unless you know right off the bat you can't do it, try this by checking in with this person. No. Try peer-to-peer this way because it transmits faster using one or more digipeaters in the middle, and then fall back to this.
Bill
Does that answer?
McFarland, N0AXZ.
I'm sorry?
Bill McFarland, N0AXZ.
Yes.
I wonder, I'm not the Winlink expert, and I was hoping someone on board would come up to explain, I hope, something significant. In your block diagram where you have Winlink server, that's actually 2 blocks. There's
Yes,
a
it
Winlink,
is.
There's a Winlink gateway, and then there is the CMS, server of the Winlink system.
That's correct.
When you connect to a Winlink gateway, if it's not prepared to do radio only and it has lost its internet, it will respond in your message saying no internet available, and most of them will hang up right then and not accept your message.
That's good to know. I've not been in that situation. So that is even earlier finding out that I can't use this path than trying to get something to these two
You just
people.
need to choose a different Winlink gateway when that happens to you.
If you can get to it.
Generally, yes. You may, if you include all the HF servers and all the different modes from Backdoor to Winmore, you'll hit somebody out there.
Yes, yes. So I kind of skipped over that too because I'm somewhat time limited. I show this HF as being peer-to-peer. It doesn't have to be. It could be hitting a server in some other state and still take this path just over the speed of the HF transmission. So yes, this is a simplistic, because I also do training of non-hams from Red Cross. But you're exactly right. This really is 2 box, could be 3 depending on how you're pulling this out. Could be the gateway, the server, and then another gateway at another location they're using. I didn't know that if that gateway doesn't have internet, it'll tell you. That's good to know. I've never hit that situation. I've always relied on this operator verifying with that operator. But it sounds like there's even an earlier. But the point is still pretty much the same. Try to use the fastest and the simplest if you can. Fastest is a VHF through a server to email. Peer-to-peer VHF is the next. Then HF, either through a server or peer-to-peer, is the third, speed-wise. And then it also, do I run everything through the central point, all messages, so he has to keep up with it? Or can I offload through either a server on UHF, VHF, or HF and have it delivered to the recipient via email? Again, that takes the choke point away from being here. But what you use will depend on your specific situation, the disaster, and what resources are available to you. Did that answer everyone's concerns or questions?
Jim, this is Dick, W4NWD. Just a quick comment. The messages may be generated or originated RF and HF, but if the recipient has the ability to run Telnet, he'll receive all those messages using Telnet at very high speed. So it eliminates some of the bottleneck. If any portion of that can get to Telnet, everything else can be sent or received.
Which implies that for him to get it in Telnet, this has internet capability. If it has internet capability, I don't have to send it to him. I send it to the person directly via email.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
So
that takes the choke point out of the middle.
exactly, and that's one advantage of having Telnet when it's available.
Well, if you're using Telnet over here, you're not really needed. They can do the same thing by sending email. So we're assuming, at least on this end, a Telnet session over the internet is not available. Unless, of course, you're doing something exotic like D-Star or what have you. I'm not talking about that. So can this gateway get to the internet? Great. Send it to the person, email. It's the fastest, no choke point, whatever. But if I have to put them in the middle, they're not going to be using Telnet to receive. They're going to be using some form of RF. Because if they had Telnet to receive, it would have gone to that person directly. These are great questions. And I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to read Jeff's comment. So yeah, it does show there's an error. Okay, I'm skimmed. Any questions on this diagram? It is simplified, I agree here. And I don't show a Winlink server up here, but those are all there. Okay. Probably the most reliable and fallback and traditional is HF, either to another server or peer-to-peer. But if it's peer-to-peer, it is a choke point here, and the transmissions are slower. So that's the last resort if you have a choice. Okay. Perhaps I bored you to tears with that. So get back to it. Somebody, and it should have been the ARC worker, has filled out a form using Winlink or FLMSG. That's what we're training right now. They've given you a USB stick with a K2S file, could be multiple. They're the ones that will fill out a 214 form that I'll show you in just a little bit. It says, you know, the last message goes to Jane Doe, the previous message goes to John Smith, what have you. You go ahead and write down the file name, usually just this last portion, since you're all working on the same day. Just this last portion. This part of the message goes to Jane Doe, this part goes to John Smith. So that when you are then sitting down and filling out a Winlink form, I will know that John Smith gets which file name because you have it on your 214 charm. I can attach it. I will address it to John Smith if I have that full internet connectivity. But if I'm going through a relay point or if I'm going through that DOC, I will put the address of the DOC up here, but in the body of the message, I have saying this goes to John Smith at redcross.org, along with the file name, the time, and the originating the originating shelter, North and Main Shelter 1. That way, if it gets sent straight, the person receives it in their email box. They just open the they drag the attachment over to their FLMSG and view the message. Also, that you can set it up where I can just double click on that message and it'll bring this up because it's a K2S file. If it goes to a relay point, it's addressed to the relay, but I know that the attached message from the body goes to John Smith, and I can then forward it on that way. So what I would like to do, if we can, okay, it sounds like another chat going on. I'm just looking at the chat post. Yeah, there's a makeup class on Tuesday. I'm also going to be sharing the recording of this. So what I would like everyone to do is go to FLMSG, pick a form, fill it out, just put anything you want. You don't, there are no particularly required fields in any except one. So do a 940 and like this one, 6409. Fill it out and then press the submit and stop right there. Let's see if anyone has any problems doing that. So start FL message, new message, should see a list of your forms. If you don't, let me know. If you do, pick one and select it. Fill out anything you want and press submit. If you have any questions along the line, don't hesitate to ask.
Jim, should it just be saved then in that default messages folder, the default that comes up when you submit it?
Excellent question. Yes, for 99% of the time, I would say yes, because you then know where to look for them. There may be some odd cases that you would change the location, and the system will remember that as the default location every time you save a file until you restart the program.
Okay, so I'm just going to save it with that default name and everything then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which
Jim,
leads into some chapters will stick some more information in front of the default name, like the originating shelter name.
Jim, this is Rainer Rentu, PEZ. Is there supposed to be a submit button on the 6409? I'm not seeing it.
Once you have submitted it, like right now, that button is not there because I already submitted this form. Hang on, let me start a new message. 6409.
I just pulled one up for my template folder. Oh, I see it on your picture. I didn't see it on mine. Let me look again. Thank you.
It's small and at the bottom. But once you've submitted it, the form still is up, and that button will no longer be there because you have submitted it.
This is Jim, KC4RD. I'm using, I have my FL Digi on another computer, not this one. But I looked on the templates folder and it says the templates folder is empty. I thought I had all the forms loaded in there because I was sending 213 forms back and forth to some people here locally. Anyway, I think I had it loaded on the Winlink program, not the FL Digi.
Okay, I'm going to get to that right after this. Yes, they're two different things. We're talking about FL message, not the Winlink forms.
Right. So I need to find out how I was trying offline, trying to figure out how to get that downloaded into the FL message folder. And,
so if you received a copy of my original notification, actually even the subsequent ones, whether it be forwarded on or what have you, I had the instructions on how to load FL Digi. And one says download this file, and then it says download these forms.
Okay.
And those forms then go in the templates directory.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any problems? Is everyone completed? Again, some chapters will put a shelter name or something else in front of this. We don't care. We're mainly most interested in this down here, the time. Okay.
Question, I missed something. In my case, it's not saving it with the timestamp. It's just saving it with the name. My call sign in this case.
And you're using FL message?
Yes. Is there some setting I missed?
Yes, but you wandered into the expert dialog. That's the only place I know where to change it.
Okay.
And somewhere it's in one of these up here, I think. Config, files, formatting. One of these up here is where that got changed.
Okay, I'll find it. Thank you.
Okay. So now you should have, where we are, file, in the messages folder, you should have your file, your form you've just created. Now this says 1 KB. It's actually like 500 bytes. Bum, bum, bum. So that great big huge form all boiled down to this, which is a text file. And it's in the order of 500, 510 bytes long. And right up the top, it shows this is the form that was used to create it. So that form is required for it to display. Because the forms change so infrequently, that's usually not a problem. But if, and again, this is nothing you should worry about because you're not looking at forms normally, unless there's some problem. But it's something the recipient would have, and he may have the old form as well as the new form loaded into his templates. And whatever he gets sent will pop up. But the real advantage of FLMSG over sending a PDF, say, of the same thing, is the size. PDF can be tens of K. This is less than a K. It transmits much faster. Well, what about the forms that come in Winlink? Why aren't we using those? And you could. Some areas do. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying if you're using FLMSG, this is how you do it. But this is why I would say not to. Jim Spencer's version. I can go to global standard templates. I can go to ARC forms, and I can find that same 6409, and it looks identical, because it is. I can fill out the same information, and I can click a submit button. Now, there is an advantage. Well, these make required fields. So that's the difference between FLMSG and the Winlink. It enforces required fields. One thing should jump to mind right away. Who is filling out this form? It's only available through Winlink. So it's, unless someone else has Winlink installed, it's got to be at the radio operator's PC. Are you slipping aside so someone can sit down and fill this out? It's possible. And as an originator, you might not be busy enough that that would be a problem, or you might. The ARRL and the Red Cross really don't want hams filling this out. It could be a transcription error in a part number or something that could cause a delay in getting that emergency case of water or medicine. That, you know, was a simple transcription error. I was trying to read somebody's handwriting while I typed it in. We don't want that responsibility. Radio operators should just move messages, not create them. So to me, that's a big problem with the built-in forms. Your particular chapter or location or something may say, that's okay, we don't use this, FLMSG, we want you to do that. Or they may do something that we don't like and hand you a PDF. They could have saved that form as a PDF and hand you this large file. If you're using HF, which is slower than VHF, and you're sending 10K bytes, it takes forever. Again, a bottleneck at the receiver. You're tying up their receiver for that time. So both Winlink and FLMSG only saves the actual data you filled in and not the whole form like a PDF, and they both transmit faster. The difference is, how do I enter the information using Winlink, because it's on my PC, as well on the receiving end, they don't have Winlink. So you can't send directly to them and expect them to be able to open the form. So if you're using the built-in forms, you're usually having somebody in the middle who's making a PDF out of it and then emailing it that way. So it's an extra step. It works. It's what's been done primarily for the longest time. But FLMSG has the advantage of both people can just have this simple little program and they can exchange the forms with or without us directly. Did that answer the question about the built-in Winlink forms? Have I confused everybody? Okay. I'm going to pretend you understand and move on. So right now we've got a message in our messages folder that you just created. What I would like you to do is go to the participants list. And I do not believe that your list is going to be exactly in the same order as mine. I don't know how they built in, but I've come to the conclusion that I can't say, Alan, you always transmit to Jody. What I would like you to do is create a Winlink message to the person below you. Now, that doesn't mean, somebody may get extra messages, some may not, but whoever's below you, supposedly, and Alan or Cliff, please add your call sign, rename yourself. Go ahead and create a message to the person in the participants list just below you.
Hi, Jim. You're the person directly below me. I think it lists me on top, like everybody would be on.
Same
top.
here.
So that would mean that you're right below a lot of people.
Same here. This is
Does that on everybody's screen, Jim?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. You probably don't want all of them.
And then they're kind of in alphabetical order, with the exception for the people that are speaking.
Send it to the person who would be below you alphabetically if you were in the alphabetical order.
Send to somebody.
This is Tom, N3XMB. Better skip me. My Winlink is not functional at this point. I'm working on getting it working.
Okay, so let's try this. Everyone get a piece of paper or something. Jody.
Yes.
Send to Alan, KN4UGR.
Okay.
Alan, send to Jody, K4EPH. See, now it changed again. Chris, AB3WG, send to Janice. Well, it's changing. I can't do what I'm doing.
Hi, this is Janice. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was unable to download the file because I have to get a Red Cross administrator to unlock my laptop.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't realize that until until last night when it was too late.
And that, by the way, is another reason that the USB stick is so nice. Because of the lockdown laptops, you can stick it in and still run FLMSG off the USB stick. That's why they've done that.
Since the list is changing, I do have Winlink up and active, but I can't send a message.
Well, send a let's just practice. You can send a message anyway.
Okay.
Pretend.
Why don't we just each pick somebody at random and do it?
Pick somebody at random. The only issue, somebody may not get something received, but they all have practice sending. So go ahead and pick someone at random. And what I want you to do, create a new message, address it to the person that you're sending to. You can just use their call sign. It will be a Winlink message.
Oh, okay.
Do the subject of, for this case, it'll be Winlink test. Normally you would put the disaster name in there. Attach the file that you just created. In the body, normally you would put the name of the recipient and their email address. In this case, just put their name and call sign. Get used to doing that. the file name, the method you're using to transmit. In this case, it'll be Winlink Telnet, but you'd also show HF or VHF or whatever. That's only used by the people at the end to figure out what path was used the most. And then the originating station, which would be your house or whatever, would be the shelter you're sending from. And then send it, post it to the outbox, and send it through a Telnet Winlink session.
W0 NWO is offline here too.
Okay.
N3LON will not work either.
I like that. Update your name to show if you can receive or not. And why aren't you working? Couldn't get Winlink working? I'm just trying to see what the problem is.
I haven't paid $24 yet.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that.
Are we filling out a 6409? Or I know you said that we shouldn't, but for this particular exercise, are we filling out the 6409 or is that
That's
already?
probably the most common, so go right ahead, but you could have picked anything.
Thank you. I didn't identify myself.
The great unknown.
Kilo Charlie 3, Oscar Charlie, no, Oscar Romeo Hotel.
Very
Janice.
good. And when you receive this, I'm going to show you the first, well, not the first because we had a couple, but the biggest gotcha. It's not gone into on the video. Any problems?
Yes, this is Whiskey One, Sierra Mike Fox. I can't find the attachment that I just saved from FLMSG. Looking
So
for one.
go up to FLMSG and open the messages folder.
Yeah.
File, messages folder. That
Yeah.
shows you where it is. And then when you do an attach, I want to add, and I already have done it once, so it opens up in my default. Well, no, that's not true.
Right. Yeah, I don't see a browse to. That's the problem.
Because attach, add, and then I can browse. Now this is actually looking on a USB stick that I have, and I don't want it there.
Gotcha.
So,
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
okay, I'm humoring myself at the moment. There we go. Now, the nice thing about Winlink, as well as FLMSG, once you've specified a directory to look in, like I am right now, I just specified in Winlink where to go find the attached file. It'll remember that for the rest of your session, so you don't have to keep browsing every time. So there I've just attached it, and there it is. Hey, Jerry? Okay, has everyone successfully sent a message?
Not yet.
Has anyone not?
W3XOX, Kevin, might want to say that they may need to run the session twice. If they sent something out, there could be something that came into the server later.
I was exactly going to that once I understood everyone has sent. Yes, so chances are you were all sending approximately the same time, and anything being sent to you hadn't made it yet. So, bang. After you send, you probably want to do an open session again so that you can connect and get any received messages.
Jim?
Hey, Jerry, K4QVH, could you turn off your video, please?
Hey, Jim. This
Yes.
is KC3PRR.
Yes.
As we're sending these and we're getting the documents back to us, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but then to view what they have sent to me, it will not open it. It will
You're
just-
right. That's welcome to my first big gotcha.
All right. I'll stand by.
So, has everyone received something?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's the trouble of the random.
Nope.
Not this time, but I have in the past.
What's the call sign?
KK4SXX.
A problem with sending at random is that the recipient may not have the sender on their whitelist already.
No, if we're doing it this way, there's no whitelist. That's only from the outside.
It's
Registered call sign to registered call sign should work.
Kilo 4 Sierra X-ray X-ray. 2 Ks.
If you receive something, just reply to it. That will ensure
No,
that the person who sent it will get something too.
Could somebody send to this gentleman? I want to show you how to receive.
KA4QVH, I have not received nothing either.
KN4UIM, I haven't received either.
W3AND is not received.
Okay, we're running late. If we stay a little bit afterwards, I will send to you folks.
Reply to any received message. So if anybody sent one, then theoretically they should be able to get a reply, and that will cover everybody.
Oh, that's okay. I've received messages in the past, so I know how.
But what I'm going to show you is different. Here is a message that has an attachment, and it was an FLMSG. You do not click on it to read it, because what you're going to get is this, and that doesn't tell you much. What you have to do is come up to attachments, save to,
Okay.
and then you put it back into your messages folder. And once you do this browsing the first time, you won't have to do it again. And I save it. And it popped up over here, which is what it should, because I just put it there. Now I can actually view message, and I will get the form as the originator created.
I think so.
So the big gotcha is when you receive any message, actually, any attachment, you should always use the attachments button and save to, because that maintains the format, the original format of that message. Saving it as a text file and trying to rename the text file back to a K2S doesn't work, because it's added a couple extra line feeds and carriage returns, and it will not display properly. But if you do attachments and save to, the actual file itself is saved untouched. So from Winlink, I will use attachments, save to, file, to my messages folder of FLMSG. It popped up over there, and I can view it. I then, where'd my diagram go? If you had sent it to a recipient directly, this is what they would do. They would look at it. They could reply to it by using an edit. They could do whatever they want. If they sent it back, it would go back to you, where you would put it in your folder, and then you say, hey, go bring your USB stick over here. I have a message for you, and copy it over to them.
This is Jody. Can I ask if Alan KN4UGR got a message from me?
Hi, Jody. This is Alan, KM4UGR. I have not, but I did send you a test message. Did you receive mine?
I got yours. I just wanted to see if you got mine.
I haven't. If you put an attachment, maybe that's the what's slowing it down.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I'll respond when I get it.
Thank you.
So we've been sending to each other, effectively following this path, even though we actually used Telnet to address a CMS in the middle, but it showed up in an email box. What we have yet to discuss is if I'm in this position right here doing the relay. Ideally, because there is no Telnet on this side, by definition, that's the Telnet connectivity is all down the one, internet and phone. I'm receiving the messages by radio. Shows up in my Winlink box. And because I am in the non-hot zone, meaning I have power, I have Telnet and or internet and what have you, I can turn around and forward the message I just received to the end recipient. How do I know, you may ask, what that end recipient is? It's because it was included in the body of the original message. In the body, when I created it, I said I was sending it to Jane Doe at redcross.org. I may have been able to address it to her directly if this path is working, but if it isn't, the person at this end can look at the body and say, I'm just forwarding it on to Jane Doe. So he would use a Telnet session over the local Wi-Fi to send it. So he's just literally playing relay. Message came in, I forward it to the person who's in the body of the message, and bang. And the same thing would work if there was a reply going the other way. They would reply, to this person, because that's where the email came from that they got. I could look at the body of the message and said that went to Red Cross Shelter 1 and forward it off using HF to that location. And this works whether that's UHF, VHF, or HF. In the case of the Winlink built-in forms, it works basically the same way, except I have the extra step of having to create a PDF from the Winlink form and then forwarding that PDF on to the recipient, because they don't have Winlink over here. Questions? Ah, see now, Bill, your comment that an XML file. Yes, it's an XML file. That's what it was. It a K2S file? You can reply audio. Bill?
No, the file extension on the attachment was XML.
So KC4RD, when you sent the message, what did you attach? A K2S file?
It's a 213.
Yeah,
But it was a K2S?
it wasn't K2S. It was just a standard form 213 in the Winlink file that I had.
Ah, so you created a Winlink file. Okay,
Right.
That's what we're not doing for this purposes of this class, but then that file should be able to should have been viewable in Winlink if you double clicked it. That's the trouble with, again, as I point out with the Winlink, it can only be viewed in Winlink and not by the end recipient unless you convert it to a PDF in the middle.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's why we like the FLMSG, because it's completely end-to-end transparent to us.
Well, I didn't have that downloaded to the FLMSG file, so
Got it. Well,
I had to go another route. Sorry.
and it's a perfectly valid route. It will be used in some areas, but this is why FLMSG has kind of come along to get around the shortcomings of someone has to sit at your PC to fill it out, as well as the recipient has to be a ham with Winlink and convert it to PDF so that the final person can look at it. Okay, so one last thing before I officially stop the class and open it up just to questions. That's the wrong document. That is the wrong document. Ah, I already had it open. One of the things I sent in my original email was a link to the radio operator guide. The Red Cross will not tell us, or should not tell us, what we have to do our job. They should say, you're moving messages, you figure out the best way to do it. But they have said, well, this is how we normally would do it in our shelters. And this is how we would like this interface to work if we could, to minimize having to change the way the worker works. So this is something that I wrote up after talking with a lot of different areas within Red Cross to figure out if they're using FLMSG, how would we best fit in? It has the preparation that shows you basically what we've already done. And then it has some flow charts just to remind you, if you hadn't done it in a while, you know, they have their own PC, they're just bringing you a USB stick. Or there's a shared PC and they're bringing you a USB stick. Or in worst case, they're asking you to move over a second and they'll fill out the form on your PC. Either way, the name and email address is logged, and I'll show you that when I go down a bit. You copy the file from the stick, you add the file name, again, this last part of it, the time and extension, to the 214 log, so that you'll now know this message goes to Jane Doe.
Jim, can you put the link to this document over in the chat?
In a minute, yes, I will. It was in my invite, but yes, I will still do it. You then create a new Winlink message attaching that K2S file. And in the body, you put the file name attached, the name of the end recipient, and the source, the name of the site you're sending from, so that they know how to get it back to you. If you know that a Winlink gateway does have internet access, just address it to that recipient and you're done. They'll get it. If it doesn't have internet access and I have to go through a relay operator of some sort, and by the way, this gateway can be HF, VHF, or UHF, something, or HF, just anything that automatically will get it out. But if I have to do peer-to-peer for whatever reason, I'll address it to the end operator at this site and send it. Then that site will do the relay to the final recipient. Receiving, real simple. Does it have an attachment? Yes. Is it K2S? Yes. Copy it to your FL message folder and then have the shelter worker bring the USB stick to them. And you can copy it onto them and they'll go look at it. And if you're doing a relay, this is what you do. The 214 form has a space, just right here, the activity log. If you just draw some vertical lines, it works out perfectly. When someone brings you a USB saying this message goes to the operations chief at this address, you will then, when you copy it over, add the file name. This helps you keep it straight when you're actually creating the form, creating the message, but it also is documentation that we will turn in at the end of the day saying, here are the messages I moved. So this goes into great detail, all the steps in that flow chart. And I will look up that file right now. Oh, somebody already did. Thank you. And again, this is not Red Cross telling us how to do our job. This is me working with the Red Cross, trying to figure out how would we best fit in the environment where they normally would use FL message directly. The same thing in many cases uses the same built-in Winlink form, because I still have to know who does it go to and their email address and what have you, but the document is aimed at using FL message. So that is the official end of the session. I am now open totally to questions. Shell shocked. Okay.
Jim, Carmine, K3CWP here.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I am assuming that there was an earlier session on setting up Winlink, but you're going to have recordings of that available to all of us. Is that correct?
That is correct. And if you want to wait until after some questions, we can go back over that.
I don't want to make you do that. If you're going to have a recording available, you either send us a link or tell us where it is. I'm more than willing to watch that independently because I want to set up. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Hey, Jim, this is Alan, KM4UGR. Is there any way anywhere in the system that if I'm working on Telnet and someone's sending to me on HF that the two will actually meet?
Explain the situation once.
So
what's the scenario?
Responding, Jody may have sent his form to me over HF. I'm working on Telnet. Was there a way that that path would have been completed?
If when he sent over HF, he happened to go to a Winlink server, then yes, that would have been exactly the same scenario now because the Winlink server will deliver it via internet and it would show up to you as a Telnet session.
Actually, I sent it Telnet though.
Okay, well, then I should have received it. I still don't have it yet. Just looking for a reason.
Okay.
Send $24 to winlink.org.
Thanks, Jim.
You might want to practice that. Get together and figure out. Or after this, I can see if I can help too. But so, real quick summary. Red Cross, big organization, 95 or plus % volunteers. Not all shelters work the same way. Not all districts work the same way, or regions work the same way. They do, with almost without fail, use these forms we've been looking at. And they use over some form of internet, Wi-Fi at the local shelter to Wi-Fi at the local recipient, email them. If this all goes out, we come in the middle. If the region happens to be using FLMSG, that's what this has been about. How to use FLMSG, get files to and from, the intricacies, how to fill out the forms that it could go either directly or through a relay operator. The way you fill out the form works the same way. Talked about all the different paths that could possibly get done. HF indeed is the fail-safe. It always works, but it's a bit slower, and I can only be really getting one at a time here while someone's tying up with the slow. I can't get anything else, but it works. It should always be available. Best address it to the recipient directly and let the gateway and the CMS server deliver it over internet. That document has listed in painful details, if you want it, about what to do, as well as just the summary flow chart to remind you. Any other questions before I stop recording and then just make it a free-for-all? Okay.
The email after all this information has time to be digested. If we have any other questions,
feel free.
Hey.
I would suggest using my regular email address, even though I do check Winlink occasionally, but I'll be much faster if you just email it to me at jim.spencer@ua42.org, which I don't have up anymore. Oh well. It's the same one the invites came from and you RSVP'd to.
Okay.
I will be sending out a link to the recordings if I can figure out how to do it. And there's always another session next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The invite went out, and I will also be doing, like I did this time, 45 minutes before, using the same bridge info, the Winlink.
Hey, Jim,